Okay. Believe it or not, we are not in 1 Corinthians 6. We have graduated to chapter 7.
Okay.
We spent a lot of time in chapter 6, and it's time to move past. Now we're going to get into basically an introduction and a foothold into chapter 7. We're going to cover some issues where there's a huge difference pertaining to how verse 1 is translated, and many of the modern translations which perverts what God actually gave. And it's important. How can it not be important? Okay, so let's do this. Let's go ahead and read chapter 7. We'll see if I can actually read through it. We'll read through verse 7. Corinthians chapter 7, verse 1 states, "Now concerning the things whereof ye wrote unto me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. Let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. The wife hath not power over her own body, but the husband, and likewise also the husband hath not power of his own body, but the wife." Normally, this text is used very heavily one-sided and used as a weapon to weaponize against the woman and to actually weaken her in the sense of, you owe me, you can't tell me no, and it actually harms her. So we'll get into that. Okay, verse 5, "Defraud ye not one the other, except it be with consent for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, and that Satan tempt you not for your incontinency." And Lord willing, tonight we're actually going to look at that word incontinency. Again, it's a word that the modern so-called scholars like to use to explain the out-of-dateness of the translation of the King James. Well, it's just not. It's not, and they're in great error. So, verse 6, "But I speak this by permission," and we're going to specifically look at that word permission. Is he saying what we think it's saying in our modern concept of permission? The answer is no. The answer is no. Because again, this text right here is used, I've heard it used to prove that the scripture is written by man, in the sense of it's not inspired. No, see, God didn't tell him to write this. He's only doing it by permission. So therefore, that takes away the value of the text. No, again, that's ignorance. Isn't it crazy how much time man will spend trying to debunk the text, where if he actually spent that time seeking to submit himself to his God, it would make sense far quicker? It's pretty incredible. Verse 7, "For I would that all men were even as I myself, but every man hath his proper gift of God, one after this manner, another after that." And so we'll stop there for this evening. So now going back to verse 1. Verse 1 states, "Now concerning the things that whereof ye wrote unto me." So clearly, as we've talked about before, there have been back and forth conversations before. This is not, Paul has received letters from people in the assembly warning him and letting him know, asking for help pertaining to the wickedness of the assembly. So there did remain a small number of true believers who were hanging in there and seeking to, they didn't abandon it, but they were seeking to strengthen it and get the help it needs. So, now concerning the things whereof ye wrote unto me, the very next topic he covers is it is good for a man not to touch a woman. Now, what does it mean it is good? Again, you can't, it's by the way, it's the same meaning as it was in Genesis. The definition and description of good pertaining to the text The actual definition of it hasn't changed. God hasn't changed. So when he said, behold, speaking of the creation, it is very good. It is perfect according to his design. So what is good? It's that which is righteous. It's that which is accord with the design of God. It is in line with his thinkings. It is his wisdom. See, we think, oh, it's good to do that, which means, you have good, then you have not really good, but then you have really good. So you have this grayscale, so to speak, of good. That's not accurate. You have good and you have bad. So when it's saying it's not good, he's not saying, well, normally it's not good, but it's not really a big deal if you do or not. In fact, I'm confident that modern concept of good and making it a changing value lends to the idea or helps with the idea of why the modern translators would translate this differently. But the Lord states it is not good, through the Apostle Paul, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. That's literally what he said. So, this word, I have it written here, let me just say it. In the ESV, the Christian Standard Bible, the NIV, and we could go on, it's instead of translating it not to touch, they translate it not to have sexual relations. There's a big difference, isn't there? Do you think that they have their own presuppositions that are contrary to the design of God that would make them want to translate that way? I think so. So again, there's a major issue with the modern translations. With a modern translation, you're not reading what God said. You're reading what man wants you to think God said. So it's a big difference. So what do you choose? Do you choose what man has given, or do you choose what God has given? What's the authority? Clearly what God has given. It carries his value. Now, the NET says not to marry. It is good for a man not to marry a woman. So there's that. Now, there's out of the 46 uses of this word in the New Testament, every single one of them has to do with something touching something. Okay, so every single time, whether it's person to person or whether you're touching fire to wood, okay, it's that you're having a connection meet. All right, so it absolutely is the word touch. This is a huge difference. There's a lot of, I will say, this is one of the, I won't get too much into it because I need to have a lot, anyway, I won't get too much into it, but this is one of the texts that is incredibly manipulated by the perverted mind of man. Period. Again, why would man change it to not to marry? That's derived. That's not what he said. He said touch, not touch. That's the literal word. Or not to have sexual relations. Well, what he means in the context, no. What did he say? What did he say? And then you evaluate the context of what he said. So, huge difference. Meaning, if it is not good for a man, if it's good for a man not to touch a woman, it's all the opposite is also the case. Now, why? Well, we know many reasons why, and it's that there's how do you say that? I'll leave that alone for the moment. But there's connections made. We'll just leave it there. There's connections made, but he's going farther into things. Okay, it's not as simple as what the modern translations are trying to make it.
He's not saying that it's good that you separate yourself all your life to the Lord. It's not saying that.
It's not saying. Say that one more time.
That it's not. I used to take that as that if we could stay single all our lives and we live for the Lord without marriage.
Sure.
What that's about.
Um, that's not what that's saying. But he is going to get into that in a little bit. And he'll go over exactly what he's saying in that way.
As he didn't marry, did he?
Paul, no. This is why, if you remember back at a while back now, and I guess we keep bringing it up on Thursdays, of course, but our relationship is founded, our purpose of our existence, who we are, is founded in our relationship to our God. So it's not, our identity is not wrapped up in if we're married or not. Somebody is not broken or something if they're not married. You know, we tend to treat people as if they don't get married and something's wrong with them. Or the number one goal of it, especially a young lady and a young man, their number one goal in life is to get married as soon as they can. No. It has to be done God's way, in His design. So there are people that God has established for them to not marry. There are people, and there's others that He has established to marry. There's not a wrong answer and a right answer to that, right? Right. It doesn't mean that there might be, but it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them. What if you raise your children for the Lord, and then you look around and you see, oh, it would be a really bad idea for her or him to marry anybody that they know? Or will you look around? What if there's no one that is of like mind? Do you just say, well, they need to get married? No, what's going to happen? They're going to destroy their life. Right? So it's God's, if there is no one to be equally yoked to, then guess what? It's God's design to not marry. Now later, He may bring somebody along that is, right? But you don't settle outside the design of God. So it's I had planned this for 2 weeks from now, not tonight, so I'm sorry if I'm stumbling a little bit. So I'm trying to find the exact right words. Either way, it is not wrong. It is not a violation to not be married or never get married, and it's not a violation to get married. The ones who don't get married, they are able to devote more of their attention to specific things, and that those who are married and have the responsibilities of raising children and doing all of that work, that they're not able to do in that season, but they're able to dedicate themselves more into this area, in so doing, strengthening the whole body. You see that? So the concept of, especially as young people get of age, pushing them together to try to get married is disastrous, to say the least. So good question. Okay. So, why is it good for a man not to touch a woman, and a woman not to touch a man? So again, it's because that individual woman is to have a specific relationship with her man, and her man is to have a specific relationship with her. If that relationship is not existing, if that man does not have his own woman, and if the woman does not have her own man, then she abstains from God's design of that relationship period with that individual, right? If she doesn't have a husband, well, then she refrains from that relationship with anybody until she does, right? So it's that simple. Again, there's so much more to it, but that will suffice for that area. All right. Verse 2, nevertheless, to avoid fornication. Now again, I'm going to try to get this out just the right way. The reason why they put the word nevertheless there is because, and then you have, if you look in your text, to avoid is italicized. I hope. Mine isn't, because I told you the publisher. All right, so I go off my software. All right. To avoid is italicized. And so, nevertheless, fornication. So what that phrase is literally saying is, because porneas exist. And it's in the plural. The porneia is in the plural. Again, what is porneia? Porneia is get it right, Joe, in your head. Porneia is any violation of God's design for the man-woman and woman-man relationship. That's why it's in the plural. It's not just from one area. It's literally all areas. Okay? So, in any area where I could violate God's design of marriage, of that man-woman relationship, that is an individual porneia. So he's talking about all porneias. So this does go outside the physical. This goes into the emotional. This goes into all sorts of areas, right? So any possible violation. So because they exist, we live in a violational world that is constantly seeking to corrupt God's design of sex. We live in a world where there is specifically sex. Okay? Our flesh naturally wants to corrupt God's design of sex. But God's design must be interacted with according to his design. It has to be. And his design must not be corrupted by looking beyond one's own man or woman or by withholding from them what is theirs. I'm going to try to say it this way, and I think as I go on, I'll be able to explain it a little better. This portion is not saying God designed men weak, and so we can't control ourselves, and so therefore the woman has to give herself up whenever so that he doesn't cheat on her. And if he does, it's probably her fault because she withheld herself. Have we heard all of that before? Okay, that is the perverse mind of man on this. That is not what this is saying. This is expressing God's perfect design of how the man and woman are to interact with each other. This is not to put, you could say, blame or fault or under thumb one or the other. And normally it's the woman, isn't it? So it's often used as a weapon against them. But it's... Well, so let's go on. I'll be able to express it a little bit better here in a minute. So God, the Creator, perfectly designed every aspect of the relationship between man and his individual woman. The man and woman must interact with each other in the perfect design of marriage. Why? Because you're commanded to. Just like every other aspect of life, just simply right now we're talking about God's design of marriage. So we must interact with each other in the perfect design of marriage so that each one is receiving strength from the other as perfectly designed. If the man is acting in error toward his woman and he's not giving her what is owed her, he is not giving her strength. He is removing strength from her. Now, that doesn't give the excuse to go do something else. And also vice versa. Okay? There's a way I'm trying to phrase something. I'm trying to get it just right. It'll hit. So, the word must have, the verb must have. Let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. So, excuse me. So, it's, let every man have. It's an imperative. So, this is a command. Let every woman have, and let every man have. So, meaning, it's a present active imperative, so it's a constant state of existence of having. Well, hang on. How is this normally taken? It's normally only taken one direction, isn't it? Into one activity, the physical activity. Well, wait, this is must have. This is present, active, a constant state. It's a command. So is that what it's talking about? Is that solely what it's talking about? Again, this was not given to put the woman under thumb so the man can just get whatever he wants when he wants it. And when he does, when he acts that way, he actually destroys his woman and removes strength from her. And remember, he has no authority to interact with her the way he wants to. And again, her to him. They have the authority and stewardship to interact with each other in the design of God, not to selfishly gain from the other. This is destroying families. Actually, it is, but let me make it a little more personal. It's destroying the wives. With the way it's often taught, what's your value? Ladies, what's your value? Do you see yourself as valuable? No, you don't. Could it be God's design for that to be the case?
No.
So why aren't we stepping back and evaluating these things instead of doubling down like I was saying earlier today? That's not the design of God. So, this activity must have, so he must have his own wife and she must have her individual husband. So when it has own wife and own husband, it's that personalization to it. There's more to it, but I'll stick to bringing that out for the moment. It's personalization to it, okay? This is not a command to be married. This is stating that those who are married must exist in the design of God for the marriage that they have entered into. The man in the design of God as the head, and the woman in the design of God as his helpmeet. In fact, I wasn't going to get into it, but in fact, when it talks about the word have for the man is different than the word have for the woman. And it's really incredible here because, as we've talked about, God has designed the man as the head and the woman as the helpmeet. Same with the both exact same value. She is the female him. So taking out all the erroneous thought processes that are brought into it that we've talked about so much, right? So it's having, so literally the word have is from the male, the head perspective to his woman. And the word have for the woman is from her perspective of her design to her man. It's incredibly detailed. So you don't get that unless that marriage is already in place. Okay? So meaning she is to have her man only and he is to have his woman only. So it's giving the parameters again of that relationship. There's nothing outside of that. All of the having is right there, directed at that one individual. There's nothing else outside of it. It literally cuts everything else out. So, verse 3. Let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife render unto the husband due benevolence. That's understood. By the way, this portion, believe it or not, is an incredible Hebrew parallelism. It is. I won't get into detail with it because I need to bring the whiteboard out and show you some. It's really neat. But it's in perfect parallelistic structure. I'll have to stop there, but it's really, really neat. So there's two lines here. Let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife understood render unto the husband understood due benevolence. So what is benevolence? Benevolence is literally, the Greek word in it literally is good-mindedness. Good-mindedness. So I'm attacking one perspective very heavily this evening for a reason. Okay, if the male is using this passage as a weapon against his wife to get his way, is he giving her good-mindedness? Oh, so it does go both ways. Do you think it's possible that the man could have a need, but that if he actually acts on it, he'll actually weaken his wife? Is that possible? Could the marriage or relationship and situations be to such an extent that she just can't right now for whatever reason? And if I force that, I'm actually removing strength from her. See, that good-mindedness. Again, I don't have the authority to force anything. Why? Because she owns me too. Well, I own her and she owns you. Your body belongs to her too, but we don't really focus on that. You see, this passage is not for the purpose of the man just getting what he wants and making the woman just submit and literally take out the in a manner that absolutely just devalues her and makes her feel like a secondhand person. That is absolutely vile, and that's nowhere in here. Nowhere. It's only read in by the perverted, wicked mind of man. And surprise, if a man is truly not seeking after his God, he's going to often be quite perverted in this area. So, do you think this right here causes incredible fights and arguments and stress in marriage? Because the man's not getting his way? But if he's acting that way, is he acting godly to his woman? He's not giving her good-mindedness. We just covered that. The word let is not permissive. It's a command. The husband render unto his wife good-mindedness. We are speaking of God's design for marriage, for the husband and wife relationship. Notice how it continues to go back and forth through this whole thing. And again, why is it that so often there's only one side pulled out? This destroys families. This causes divorce. I won't be a part of it anymore. It's just ridiculous. So you have let the command, let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife understood render unto the husband understood due benevolence. Meaning they're both. Doesn't this sound familiar? All we got to do is Paul teaching anything new? Is he teaching anything new? Was this taught in Genesis? This was taught to Adam and Eve. See, what is he meaning here that both are owed good-mindedness? It's almost as if the man is to interact with his woman in the design of God to strengthen her so that she can be all that God has designed her to be, and she in turn turns and strengthens her man so that her man will be all that God has designed him to be. And again, she's the acer connecto. She's there to support me and do everything, and I'm the head, and she's supposed to do all of this. Again, him turning around, so to speak, or turning to her and rendering her good-mindedness is not new. He also, from the position of the head, is to turn and assist her and be her helper, be her acer as, what's the literal rendering there? As according to the prominence of her, to help. If the man is not going to strengthen his woman from that very intimate perspective of knowing her and strengthening her, who's going to? Because God designed the man to do that. Is there any other human that can take that place? No. You see, this isn't new. This isn't something that's just revealed. Both are owing each other good-mindedness. And by the way, this is a participle, so it's continuous action. And it's in the middle. It's in the middle, meaning there's intent behind the good-mindedness. There's a thought process. There's a thinking. There's taking the time, the energy, the consideration, like I've been saying, to evaluate every aspect of her and his mind and life to know exactly what good they need. What good? Is it just to make her happy? Is it just to make him happy? No. The goal of marriage is not happiness. This is why so much marital counseling is nonsense. Well, we're having a problem, so how do we fix the problem and then go about life? No, that's a symptom. You don't fix the symptom and go back about life. There's cancer underneath. And you're just going to put makeup on it and go about your day. The point is, the getting along and the joy in marriage is the byproduct of an accurate relationship with God in the marriage. The woman, again, that middle, owed good-mindedness. It's not that I'll do something nice for her or I'll do something nice for him. No, you know what's owed to the other? What's owed, and it's all, this picture's all in here. It's owed. If you're the woman or you're the man, just take it personal so I don't say this twice and then mess something up. Okay? But the other is owed you giving yourself to your God. Because you can't interact with the other accurately if you don't. You can't give them good-mindedness because you only have bad-mindedness. So they are owed you constantly walking in your God, evaluating everything, seeking to accurately interact with all of existence in accordance with His design. Sounds familiar, right? This is what's owed. And to actively be thinking about that primary human relationship that you have as being that's the most important human relationship you have, and ensuring that you are giving them moment by moment specifically what they need so that they can exist, to help them exist accurately in the design of God. When does your husband change and your wife change? Do they ever change? Are they the same person 5 years ago? So 10 years ago, are you married to the same person, so to speak? You're married to the same person, but they're quite different, right? Well, what about when you first got married? Quite different, right? Yeah, life moves on. Honeymoon. Done right, the honeymoon should keep going and get better. So seeing that gradual change over time, or you can look back 10, 15, 20 years and see a huge change. You know what that means is that we're changing on a daily basis. We just don't see it up close.
We're supposed to grow.
We are. We're supposed to grow. But we're always changing. We're always getting older. Your spouse doesn't have the same strengths and weaknesses as they did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. You see? So if they're changing on a day-by-day basis, and they're changing within that day. Do you know what that means? That means they're owed good-mindedness, meaning that active thought of knowing that and staying ahead of that, so to speak, so that when they get to that point, you're already there meeting their needs. It's not as simple as just being nice to each other. You can kill somebody by being nice to them. Happens all the time. That's a lot of thinking, isn't it? It's not normally what we think about, is it? We think of marriage as kind of a little bit of passive after a while. Oh, I've been married a long time. Just hanging out. That's not God's design. They're owed, the other is owed that good-mindedness. They're owed you knowing your God. And in order to give them daily what they need to help strengthen them in their weaknesses here and there, and to help them exist as God's designed to, you can't separate it out. You have to be walking closer with your God every day. What tends to happen with our Christianity, though? It stagnates. And then we get a lot of problems. because life keeps moving on, but we're not growing in our God. And so now we're ill prepared. This rendering due benevolence. See, good-mindedness. Do you think if that accurate concept was in the mind of the believer of benevolence here, that would change a whole lot of perspective of how they view the text, of what the other is due? It would. See, this goes far beyond sex. This goes far beyond that. This is the manner of existence of one's relationship. The woman is owed good-mindedness, meaning to exist thinking toward and interacting with in the design of God. Don't steal from your woman. If you have something that belongs to another, you're a thief. The man is owed good-mindedness. The man is owed that you exist thinking toward and interacting with him in the design of God. Don't be a thief. We all know what it looks like and how life is when we're not doing this. So we already know the solution. We already have the physical evidence that it works, because we have the physical evidence that our ways don't work. And then we have the evidence of, well, it's kind of what God said. There's only logic behind this, because there's only logic in truth. True logic. But it only makes sense because it's true. This belongs to them. As the Creator has stated, it is owed to them. Understand, this is not simply the Apostle Paul telling the Corinthians, you owe this to him. This is the Creator telling every one of his children, this is owed to your spouse. Because I have commanded you to steward that relationship in that manner. All the way back in Genesis, you owe me. You owe them. Do not steal from God by ignoring your relationship with your wife or husband. Again, this goes far beyond getting along, doesn't it? Getting along would be the byproduct. Do you think God designed marriage to be just difficult and depressing and hard? And why would it have all these negative connotations today if the original design was to strengthen each other and to truly exist in incredible blessing? There's a lot of jokes about marriage in Christianity, isn't there? Kind of taking jabs at it. I think we have some really wrong thinkings. Do you think it'd be helpful for young children to know this years before they get married? Instead of going, man, I wish I knew this 15 years ago. Well, we'll have to end there. Well, it's not surprising I didn't get far, I guess, but I got past one page, so I'm winning. This covers another huge aspect of why we'll leave it to the Christians. Okay, we'll leave it to the believers, those who call themselves Christians. We won't go to the world in this, but this is another element of why the Christian families are so destroyed. This is why. Again, do you think this is absolutely necessary to know? This is actual life. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this evening, and thank you for what you've shown us. And Lord, may we take it to ourselves and grasp it and pull it close and cause firmness to it and take this piece of truth as well and establish our life on it. And Lord, convict us where we need convicting, not just now, but constantly. As you convince us and show us your truth, may we joyfully grab your truth and not turn from it in pride. And may we see the results of your blessings in our life as we cause firmness to you and your design. Let's have our time of prayer. Let's pray.